All right, so we'll start out just a little discussion about assessments and test quizzes. So you have ad materials, assessments, and test quiz. Test quiz has been around since they started with Schoology. Assessments came around, I don't know, a few years ago. And there's only 6 question types for test quiz. They're all text-based. And assessments, there's about, I think there's 18 question types, much more interactive, much more graphical. And so this is where they're heading. Test quizzes will be around for a little while yet, but eventually that's going to go away. I know, looking at their roadmap, they still have probably a year of stuff to do before they have everything they need in assessments in order to get rid of test quiz. So it'll be a while before test quiz is gone, but just realize it will go away eventually. There is a way to convert test quizzes into assessments. So if you do make a test quiz or have some that you've used, you can convert them. The directions are linked in the agenda. You do all that conversion in the resources area. So anything you want to convert, you've got to copy the resources first, and then you can convert it. And you can convert in bulk, so you can select, if you put all your test quizzes into a certain folder, you can select everything in that folder and convert it all at once. And the conversion is pretty clean. They come out almost exactly the same as they were. A few differences, like test quizzes, you can do unlimited attempts. Assessments only up to 20, so it does change a few things, but not much. So let's take a look at a couple, just real quick. Let me jump off to, if you guys have taken the Schoology Essentials class, you've seen what an assessment looks like. There's a bunch here, but let me just go to preview it. So when I say interactive, you have a lot of drag and drop type of interaction in test quizzes. You can move things around and interactive graphs and number lines and all that you can do. So just to show you the interactivity of it and kind of what we're going to be working towards as we go through the webinar today. Some math type ones. You have things where you can highlight text. You have things you can draw. So just a quick look at that. We're going to create from scratch and get there, but just the idea of what you can do here versus a test quiz, which is all just very, you can put images in there, but other than that, it's all just text type responses. Pick a multiple choice. You can do a little bit of dragging around with this one question type, but that's the extent of the interaction. And this is every question type that exists there. So that's it. That's all there is with test quiz. So much more interactive with assessments. I want to point out too, in the handout, there is a link that goes to a playlist from Schoology. So it's a little bit dated now. So some things are a little bit different, but it's pretty close. They go over all of the, I think 18, or maybe they go through like 16 of the question types. And it's a good series of videos. They're each about a minute or 2 or 3 each. So click that link if you want to watch all this being done again by a Schoology person. But they cover the question types really well in those videos. All right, we're going to start from scratch here, creating an assessment. So I'll put one right here. And the first step in getting assessment is just this initial, to get it started page. So I'll just do assessment, pick a due date, a point value. I want to point out the point value here versus the point value of your individual questions. What the total is can be different. It'll scale it to this point value when it's done. And we'll show you more about that later. But submissions, by default, it's disabled. So you can create this assessment and have it in your course, not unpublished. You can have it published, but they won't be able to actually open it until you change this to enable, or unless you say enable until or from until. You can do this ahead of time. I tend to just enable it when it needs to be enabled and turn it off when it needs to be turned off. But you can use that instead of having to worry about publishing and unpublishing. Having this published but submissions disabled lets students see that they have a test or an assessment coming up soon, but they can't open it up. If it's unpublished, they won't even know it exists yet. So either way, depending on how you want to do it. Password, there's probably several uses for that, but let's say I have 3 blocks of students and I enable it, in the morning for the first block. Well, anyone from the second and third block can get to it as well, right? So if I enable a password, I can have a password that the first class would enter in order to get in, and I could change that, I guess, to, in case anyone wants to text their friends what the password was, you could always change that as soon as everybody's in, and then whatever password was used wouldn't work for the other kids, so for the next classes. That's one reason I could see using a password, is prevent future classes from getting in once the first class needs to. Let me turn that off for now. I'm going to leave this enabled so I can actually demo it as we go. Pick a category, and then you have your other normal settings here to copy to the courses and so on. So let me create that. And that takes you to this screen where you have a bunch of setup items. So going through them quickly. First off, the instructions, a little bug here. There's a couple little bugs here that are minor, but like this. When you put your instructions in, and you can put images and videos, everything else you want in here to make this, much more informative. But everything here will be centered when it's displayed. So don't try and, all these alignment buttons don't make any difference. Everything will be centered once it's displayed to the students. So don't bother with these. I'm not sure if that's a bug or not, but that's the way it works. But the bug is this: I can't expand this right now. I should be able to grab this and make this window bigger. So if I had an image here or a video, I really take up way more room than is even available to show. So this should be expandable. I have a bug report to them, but hopefully they'll get that fixed soon. All right, so looking down some of these settings here, time limit, you can turn the time limit on if you'd like. Assessment questions are randomly ordered, so everybody sees a different order as they take the quiz. Kind of useful if they're have kids sitting close to each other, and which that won't happen for a while, I guess, but eventually. So they can't look over each other's shoulder and just see number 5 is whatever, right? So they'll have different order of questions. Show possible points for each question. Okay, down here is ones I want to go over. Students can flag questions for review. So if you hit yes for that, as they're going through a question, they can hit a little flag on it, and then at the end of the assessment, it'll show them all the questions where they have where they flagged them, so they can go back to those questions to review them or to try again. Students can eliminate answer choices. If that's on, they can, on a multiple choice question, they could click a couple answers and shade them out so they're not selectable. Students can use a calculator, a ruler, or a protractor. You can turn those on. With each one, you get a couple options: basic or scientific. You get a metric or English, and then protractor, just yes or no. So I'll just leave one of those on for now. And these can be turned on here to go, and they'll have them available for the entire test quiz. But you can also turn them on within the questions themselves. So if you want a particular question to have a calculator button, you can put that in the question itself. So 2 different ways to do it, whether you think they need it for the whole test quiz, or you want to have it just available on certain ones. You can do it either way. Students can highlight text. I'll show you that and show you what the notepad looks like. And these features show up, and you'll see there's a toolbar on the right that students have available to use these different tools. The eliminate choices, that's in the toolbar on the right as well. Same for flagging. Students can view results after an attempt is submitted. So do you want them to see their grade, yes or no? You can say no initially, or you can say yes. Or you can say yes with correct answers. So it depends on the type of assessment you're giving. If it's one where you have to do a lot of grading yourself, for example, if there's a lot of free response questions that will not automatically grade, then it doesn't make sense to show them a grade. It makes sense to probably leave it as no, because let's say you have 5 questions that are automatically gradable, such as true, false, or multiple choice, and 5 questions that are free response that you need to grade. It'll only grade automatically the 5 questions that can be graded. So if they got them all right, they'd have a 5 out of 10. That's what it'll show until you go through and grade the other ones. So it would show very inaccurate grade if you had a lot of ones that you had to interact with to grade. So it's up to you how you want to show that. I'll leave yes with correct answer so we can demo that. And number of attempts, I'm going to turn this to 20. That's the max. So as I go through this, I can demo taking the test multiple times. And then final grade is determined by highest score or last score. Up to you which way you want to go on that. All right, let me save that. Now our test is set up. And now it's a matter of starting to add questions. So I'm going to demo a lot with a multiple choice question, and we'll get into all the other types after a little while, but I'm going to make a multiple choice question here, and here are the different, 18 different types you have. But I'll start with a simple, very simple quiz or simple question. What is 8 plus 5? All right. And in here, we'll look at some of these options later. You can put lots of different things in here, but we'll start with just very simple first. So I'll put in, so 3 in case they do minus. And if I want to give a rationale as to why I'm giving these choices, I can say distractor rationale. This is something only the teacher sees, but I can put that in there to give me a reason why, what I might need to review after they do this test. So this would be all right. Possible answer, I'll say 12. Reason is 1 less. Another answer could be 13, correct. And then 14, which is 1 more than the right answer. And then I'll put another option here, and I'll say 58 or 85, I guess. All right, something like that. So most people don't use it distractor rationale. They just put the answers in. But if you wanted to keep notes for yourself as to why you chose these different choices or put them in there, you can do that to include that distractor rationale. Again, it's just for you to look at. Students don't see it at all. All right. Once you are done with that, you put in the correct response. All right. We'll look at these other options later, but we're keeping it simple right now. You can shuffle responses so that they show in a different order instead of always showing in this order. To do whatever, same idea as the question is being shuffled. And let's save that. Now I can preview the entire exam here, or I can go to this specific question and preview that specific question. So this is what it would look like. It shows me what my score is right now. If I pick that, still get that. If I pick the right answer, it shows me what I got there. I can even say show answers here. So it'll keep that as the correct one as I play around with it. One thing I want to point out, this is a common mistake teachers make. I'll say a mistake, just not being aware. If I did not save that question yet and I X'd out to get out of this preview, when I X out, I go back to here, right? So if I hadn't saved it yet, it wouldn't be here. So be sure that when you create a question and preview it, so I go back here and I preview, there's if I'm still editing, there's an option that says edit question here. I'll show you that a little bit later, but don't X out if you haven't saved it yet. And don't try and save it from here either. Saving doesn't often work from here. If you haven't picked a correct answer yet, you can't save, and it'll actually lock it up on you eventually. So if you try and save over and over again, it'll lock it up. So point is, go back to edit, which would actually, I'm in preview. Sorry, here's preview. Here's back to edit. I wasn't there yet. So if I go back to edit, now I can save it and it'll save properly. So just be aware of that. Don't X out if you haven't saved it yet. All right. Let me look at the student view on that one question. So I'm going to open up a separate window for a student in the course. Go to Schoology, into that class. There we go. All right. So I have go to the sample assessment, and I'm going to start an attempt as a student here. So my instructions would all be here. Start attempt. And here I'm in as a student. And I mentioned earlier on the right, I have the option to flag questions. I can use this eliminate choices. Here's the protractor I mentioned earlier, or I can use that if needed. If I had a ruler or the calculator, that would be here as well. I turned on a notepad. A notepad is something I can use just to take notes for myself. It's something that only I see. It persists across all questions within the test. But once I submit, everything's gone. It goes away. All right, I can't have it load again once I open the assessment again. So it's just used during the test. If I want to keep information for myself, move it out of the way and just keep my notes going here as I go through the assessment. You can go full screen if you want to get other distracting information out of the way. And then you have some accessibility settings here as well. So if someone with a color blindness and the images aren't showing right, you can change here, change the font size to make it much bigger if needed. And you have a zoom option that's just the typical Chrome zoom. They just let you know what they are. You can zoom with Control+, Control-, or Control-0 to reset. That's a Chrome zoom functionality, but they just give that here to let you know that you can do it. All right. So if I wanted to get rid of, maybe I know 85 is wrong, I can say I'll eliminate choices and I'll click here, and that one's gone. I know 3 is wrong, so now I need to figure out, use my fingers to count, what the answer is maybe. But anyway, if I click this off again, I can now answer the question, pick a response. Once you are done with the test, there'll be a series of numbers here to go to each question. We'll see that in a little bit, but I can review then. Let me go back. If I go back to that question, if I flag this question, hit a flag here. This is now flagged to review. When I go to review, I'll see a flag here. So if I had 20 questions and I flagged a bunch, I'd see a flag on just the ones that I had flagged. I can say, just show me the flagged ones only, and only the flagged ones would show. And I can go back to those flagged ones to try them again later. All right, but I'll review here and finish. And are you sure? Yes. And I've now submitted that question. All right, so I'll look at the teacher view in a bit. From the teacher view, if I go back here, let me get out of this here. If I go to grading, I'll see that, and I go to, this is by question. Yeah, by question or by student. I'll show this once I have some other responses in. But by student, I would see that this student has completed, made 1 attempt, got 20 out of 20, it auto-graded. There's nothing I need to do with this one. It's already done. I can go here and look at it if I wanted to see their responses, but I don't need to if everything's auto-graded. All right, let me add some more questions here, and we'll see how this looks when we get some more stuff in there. So let's go to, let's add another multiple choice question. And let's see. So I'll say, let's get a little higher in math here. What? All right, so I'm going to put in some math type questions here. So let's do, we'll do 5, we'll do -5. Let's do absolute value of 5. So there's a math editor here. So I'll click on this math editor, and I can say, here's absolute value right here. I can pick that and put 25 there. Oops, 25 there. Okay, let's do square root of 25, which would be another correct answer. So I'll do square root here, 25. That, and then I'll do one more option here, which is 625, in case I do square root instead of square. And there we go. All right, I need to pick the correct answers. So this one, there's multiple correct answers. This one, and this one are all correct. So here I have to say multiple responses. All right, and I'll do 5 minus 5 and square root of 25. All those will equal 25 when squared. All right, so now you have some options on how the scoring goes, though. So where is, okay, anyway, oops. All right, so you have exact match or partial match. Partial match means they'll get part credit if they get some right. Exact match means they have to get all 3 of these right to get any credit at all. If they get one check wrong, they'll get 0. So if they put these three plus this one, they would get 0. If you want partial match works as for each one you get right, you get a so let's see, there's 3 correct ones here, right? So each correct one is 33% of the correct of the total. So if I click these 2, I would get 66% of the point value of this question. If I click just this one, I get 33%. Click 1, 2, 3, I get 100. But if I also click this one, I would get 1, 2, 3 correct minus 1 wrong. I'd have 2 of the 3. So that would give me 66%. So basically this one, anytime you pick a wrong one, it negates a correct one. So if I picked all 5, I'd have 1, 2, 3 correct and 1, 2 wrong. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. I get 1 out of the 3. You know, so 1/3 of the percentage of the point value for this question. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, you can ask later, and I'll give some more detail on it. But let's actually see if I can demo that. Oops. So I have not saved yet. So if I go here to preview question, and let's see if it gives me 100%. Okay, so until I got all of them correct, even though I said partial credit, it's not showing it that way, all right? Because I haven't saved yet. So let me go back to edit question. Here's what I'm saying. If I X'd out, I haven't saved yet. If I X'd out, it'd be gone. I lose that question. So edit question. I have partial credit, partial match. Let me save this. Now if I go to it and preview, it should show me now. Yeah, I have 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, but then I pick a wrong one, it drops back down to 2 out of 3. Okay, another wrong one, I get 1 out of 3. All right, so that's how partial credit works. All right. Now I've already saved it, so I can X out here. Let me see if anything else I want to show there. Let me look at my notes real quick. Okay, yeah, let me show this one other thing here. So this question, this assessment, if I edit this assessment, it's worth 20 points, right? Here I say this is a one point question. This is a 1 point question. So really, it's only a 2 point assessment at this point. So really, this will be scaled up to 10 and 10, right? So I could say this is, if I want to make it add up to 20, I could say this is 5, and this is a more complex one to make this 15. Now it equals 20. Oops, 15. But if I had anything else, if I had 5 and 10, and it did not add up to 20, it would scale these up. So this would be worth 6.5, 6 2/3. This would be worth 13 1/3, because it's going to scale them up to be a total of 20. So that's how those point values work. So let me, I'm not going to demo that. I think that makes enough sense there. Let me add another question here. So let's do one with an image. So I'm going to add another multiple choice question. And I'm going to say, how wide is this donut? Morning time, we have to have donuts in this webinar. All right. And I'll say, measure the max width. Oops. Side, just make it as clear as possible. All right. So here I want to add an image. So images, this is really best for images on your computer, not in your Google Drive. You can do it for Google Drive. I have directions in the handout. I'm not going to show it here, but you have to get the embed code from Google Drive, and it shows in a bigger view than you'd really like. So it's best to add the images directly from your computer, or link to an image in a website. Again, it will work from Google Drive. It's just not the smoothest, takes more time, and it doesn't show as well. So anyway, let's add one from the computer here. And I have a donut here. I may open that up. And I can change the size of this. I'll change it to a little bit bigger than was here. It'll scale it. I have this locked, it'll scale accordingly. Let me hit OK. I now have this donut in here. All right, so in this question, I also want them to be able to use a ruler. And I'm going to say to the nearest tenth of a centimeter. There we go. So I'll put some responses here. I think I have 10 centimeters. Let's do 10.3 centimeters, 6 centimeters, and we'll do 11. Those are my responses. And I think if I did this once the other day, I think I scaled it right. That should be the correct answer. We'll see when we do in a second. All right. Now I want them to have a ruler here, a metric ruler. So I could check on the entire assessment earlier when I did the setup. I could check to show the ruler for the whole assessment, but I want it just for this one question. So if I go back into here, where do I want to put that? I want to put a little button for them to open up a ruler. So I'm going to put it right here, and this one right here are your tools for this question. I'll look at some of the things that are here later, but right now I want to add a ruler, 15 centimeter ruler. It'll give me a button like that. That's good. I can change the text if I want for that, but I'll just say okay. And let me save this. I always like to save before previewing just to make sure I don't accidentally X out. So now I'll go back to it and preview question. So here's how it's going to look. If I click that ruler, I have a ruler now that I can move around. I can rotate it around. All right. And there we go. It was 10.6. Okay. So I can put it on there and measure across, put an answer down. Shows me I'm correct. So that's how you can get an image in, get the ruler on the question itself. All right. Let's try another donut question. Let me get out of this one. And we'll do one more multiple choice question with some donuts here. So, which donut is, say, has 2/3? All right, so now I want to put images in the options here. So I can go to my image button here, drag and drop, and I'll do this here, open. Let me make it a little smaller. I'll do, I don't know, let's do 50. Let's do a little bigger than that. All right, let's do another one. So if you had your Windows, your this guy here open, I could navigate to that folder and then just drag them in. So let me show you how that would work. I'll hit OK here, and I'll do another one here, one more image, and I have this. I can just grab the right one and drag it in. Oops, I forgot to resize that one. Here, click on that, edit, and I'll change this to the same size. All right, that's good enough for now. And so the corrected answer is going to be 2/3 eaten. It'll be here. Let me save that. And we'll preview it. Oops, I'll preview the whole test. I didn't mean to do that, but let's do that anyway. And I'll just jump to question 4. And there's the, I should have gotten rid of that extra response there. So that's something I need to fix. So there's how you can get, questions into the, or images into the questions, into the options. All right, let me go back out of this. So if I want to fix that, I would just X out over here that extra response. So I'm back down to 3 now and save that. All right. Let's try another one here. One more, we'll do another. Oh, I want to show this as well. Let me add one more option here, and I'll do another image. Just drag one in, make it 100. So uh, all right, so I preview this. Let's say I use bigger images here, and these were running down the page too far. So I can change how the layout looks. So let me go back to edit here. And instead of having it show this way, I can change the layout from standard to, let's say, let me do this first. I'll change it to 2 columns. And now I have it more compact. I can go to 4 columns. And maybe that's even better. All right, so here I have the radio button on the left. I can change that to radio button under. Okay, and that would be good if these images were really, showing up too close to each other. Maybe you wouldn't know if the radio button goes to this one or to that one. So having an under is better. But I actually like this one the best. Block. All right, and so I preview that. You have the whole block gets highlighted when you pick it. So just different options of how you can show that question. All right, and those are your layout options. Now you'll see as we go through the other question types, there's other options down here, but I think I've covered everything on this question type so far. I'll point out this in a well, let's do that. I'll do it a little bit later. Let me just do it now, actually. So let's say you had a question that could have multiple correct responses, or maybe you wanted to give, you want to give half credit for this one because maybe they misread the question and they thought which donut it shows 2/3 instead of which is 2/3 eaten, right? So maybe you want to give them half credit for this one. So I could have another option here and say alternate is if they pick this one, I'm going to give them 50% of the correct points. All right. So that'd be a way to, you can make, instead of partial match that you used on the multiple correct, you could make your own multiple correct answers by using all these alternates. You can make as many alternates as you want, and give them different percentage values based on what they pick. So you have the option to build that yourself, or let Schoology do it with their calculation method if you have the multiple option question. All right. Let's see here. Let's do one more multiple choice, and we'll move on to the other question types. So I'm going to do, save that. Let's do one more. So another multiple choice. And here we're going to do this here. How do you pronounce all right? One that I wasn't sure how to say. And so here I want to have audio responses. So I'll go to this tools here, and I can have you can insert, I can record an audio, I can record video, I can upload a video, I can upload audio. Here's the other ones I showed you earlier. You can add these different buttons in here to open up these items. But I'm going to record audio, and I'm going to say for this one, Ganache. All right, I'll insert that. I can play it back to listen to it. I'll insert that. And hit OK here. Let's do another one. And here we go again. So record audio. Ganochi. All right, hit OK. Okay, let's do 2 more here quickly. I'll get these in there. Naki. All right, and let's get the correct one now. Gnocchi. All right, so there's our responses. And I did that, went through the point, all 4 of them to show you that it doesn't take long to do these. I mean, even though I'm adding audio video, in this case, it's a quick, quick audio, but it's not a big deal to get, in multimedia into here. So let me see. The correct one was, now which one is it? You have to listen to each of these to see which one's correct if you couldn't remember which order you did, but I know it was that one. And let's save that. And I have my headset on, so you won't hear those responses. But if I preview this, there's a little player for each one. So I can play it. And I just heard it myself in my headset. Try this one and try that one. Okay, and so by listening to these, I can hear which one's right, select the right one, and okay. Anyway, there's how to get audio in there. So lots of ways you could use that, but you can use your ideas on that. But for different speech, with you want to provide audio responses for students who have trouble reading, you can give an audio response. So you can have an audio question and audio responses. So students would go here, they can't read yet, they're pre-K. They can click on the audio in the question and then click on the audio in the answers and pick the right one. So that could be all, no text at all for someone who can't read yet. All right, let's go to different question types now. I'm going to let's go to true, false. These are obviously pretty obvious how this works, but you put a question in. I'm not going to actually create all these, just going to show you some of the differences and that from the multiple choice ones and things that are you might not understand what they mean. So here I can put a question where I have either a true, false response, but I can change these to yes, no. You can change it to aerobic and anaerobic, right? So you can make these whatever you want. Doesn't have to be true, false. But if it is true, false, I can say require correction if false. So I check that. I now am going to require them to put in the correct answer. So how would that work? So oops, the go here. So let's say I have I don't know, butter and mustard, right? Good. All right. Well, hopefully they'd say false on that. But if this is checked, it will not auto grade. Even if they get the correct answer, that's false. They need to correct it. So how do they know what to correct though? So what you would do is underline this or bold it, and you would say, well, it'll say it for them to correct it. All right, you could even, well, we'll see in a second. Let me just show you what it looks like. So this is for you. I can say, jelly here or honey or whatever, but this is just notes for you. Okay, they don't see this. They don't have to respond this way. They just have to put some answer in. You will have to manually grade this one if you check this button. It will not auto grade. So you'll look at the response and give them credit for the question or not. So let's preview that. And mustard is good. If I say true, doesn't know anything. I say false, it says correct the indicated phrase. So underline, bolded. So I would come down here and say jelly. All right. And back one second on that. Preview that again. Oops. Yeah. So it doesn't. You see that score doesn't matter. It does. Well, I'm sorry. I guess in this case, live, it would not give them a. It's just showing true, false. It's scoring it automatically here, but in reality, this won't work on a live test. In the preview mode, I guess it does, but when they're really taking it, choosing false will not actually give you a score. You have to score it manually. So let me go to the student view. And I just did it. I didn't save it, right? So the question is gone. I lost a question. So that's an example of what you don't want to do. I should not have X'd out from preview. Always go back to edit question. All right, and then you can save it from there. So let's move on here, I guess. All right. All right, matching. A matching question. So match them. All right, I'll just do 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Rid of. And some reason on my computer, and I don't know if this is just my computer or it happens to others, but there's no X here to X this out. It's here, but I can't see it. Could just be my computer. But if you go to the right, you'll be able to X out. So if you see that on your computer, just know that the X is here. But anyway, it's gone now. So there I put in I can change the order here. The order that you put here is the order that they'll see it. So you pick the order here, and then show the correct responses here. So this is where you build it. This is where you show the correct responses. I can say duplicate responses. If I do that, then they could put the same answer in multiple spots. So you might have a question, again, aerobic and anaerobic, for example, earlier, and you have different examples here, and they can then put in aerobic or anaerobic into each of those slots. All right, that's pretty simple how that one works. Ordering, I'll just cancel this one. So ordering works similar to matching. Although this one has a very interesting grading method here, I'll explain. So I'll say these in order. It could be order of a sequence of like the of some kind of a cycle, or of a history sequence of events, or whatever, fractions, whatever you want to do here. But I'll just do 2, 4, 3, 1. That's the order I want them to see. And the correct answer is 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So here's what I want to point out with this. You have the layout list button. It's just different ways it looks, or inline. It'll show it off to the right. You drag the motor that way. I'll leave it the way it was. So let me save this one so I don't lose it again. All right. The grading on this is interesting. So right now I have the grading exact match. So if I preview this, I'll get no credit until I have these exactly correct. So I did 1, 2, 4, 3. That's close, but still no credit. Now I get full credit. Let's change that to partial match. And I have to save it in order for that to work. So I can't preview it until I save it to actually show the different grading technique. So here I'll preview partial match. And if I do 1, 2, I have 2 in the correct order. So you see it's half credit so far. If I put this over here, I only have 1 in the correct spot. So I have 1 out of 4. Put this here. Now I have 2 in the right spot. So it looks at the right spot for them. That's how it grades it. So even though these 3 are out of sequence, this 1 is in the correct spot. So there's partial match. And then eventually if I only have 1 in the right spot. Now I have all 4. Now I'm good. All right. And again, I'm previewing this, so I see this. Students obviously don't see how they're doing as they go. Let's go to edit this question again. And here's partial pairwise per response. What does that mean? It took me a while to figure this out, even after reading how it works. So let's show you how this works. So partial pair, let me save this. It might be the best option for this kind of a question, but it's also a little bit confusing, and you'll see in a second. So let me preview this now. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good. Whoops. 1, 2, 4, 3. Whoops. 1, 2, 4, 3. I'm getting 83% of the point value. If you do the math, and that's 83%. So 5 out of 6 I'm getting credit for. How does this work? Put the 4 up here. Now I'm getting half credit. I have 3 in order, 1 out of order. I'm getting half credit. What if I put the 2 up top there? I'm getting 83% again. How's this working? So here's how it works. It's all kind of relative, I guess. Let's start with this one. The 1 is first. This is correctly after the 1, so I get 1 correct. This is correctly after the 1, that's 2 correct. This is correctly after the 1, that's 3 correct. These are all after the 1. 3 different things after the 1, I get 3 points, let's say. After the 2, this is correct and this is correct. These both came after the 2. So that's, I had 1, 2, 3, now I have 4, 5 correct. What's after the 4? This is not correct. I don't get points for that. So if I put it in this order, you can see how it works. 1, this and this and this all come after the 1. There's 3 there. After the 2, these both come after the 2. So I get 2 more points. And the 4 comes after the 3. There's another point, that's 6 total. So there's 6 total points possible on this. And depending on the sequence, you can, let's see, now I have, this would be 2 out of 6 correct, 1/3. So after the 3, the 4 is correct after the 3. So there's 1. After the 2, the 4 is correct. There's 2. After the 4, nothing, that's right. So I only had 2 of the 6 correct here, which is what that equals to be. Anyway, that's how it works. If you ever use it, if you don't use it, that's fine, but at least you know how that works now. Hopefully I didn't go into that too much detail, but that's one confusing, the only really confusing grading piece in all of this. All right, let's move on. We're going to go to fill in the blank. And there's 3 different options there. Fill in the blank. There's text, there's drop down, and there's drag and drop. So I'll show you the difference there. So here's how this works. Quick. If I put an underscore, it gives me another response. Oops. Or I can hit this R button here for a response. All right. And that's it. Students would then put in the words there. They type them in. I can have it be case sensitive if I want. Where was that? Right here. If I want these boxes to be smaller, I can change this down to a smaller box. Here, there. I know the words over 10. So I'll make it down to 10. And there we go. Partial match. This counts how many did you get right. So there's 3 options here. If I put partial match, I got 2 of these correct. So I have to put in the actual words here. All right. The partial match would be how many did you get right. I can have a penalty score for ones that you did not get right. So I'm taking 10 off out of 100 for everyone you did not get right. All right. I'll leave that alone. Let me save that. And let's go back to the student view again. And I'll jump to that last question. And this is how it looked from the student point of view. So they would answer and then review, finish, submit. All right. So this student has submitted twice. They can look back at their previous submissions or their most recent one. It is being auto-graded. So if they already had 20 out of 20, I said the highest score. If I look at this one, though, I would see I got 0.666 out of 20. So I got partial credit on that one question, and you can see the point value here. So right here, I got 2/3 of that right. I got those 2 right, this wrong. So this is how the student would see the responses. Got all these wrong, is showing all the wrong, showing the correct response had I actually done these questions. All right. And it just so happens I have 20 total points right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these were worth 10 and 5. That's 20 total points. So that's why I worked out exactly correct. All right. Let me go back out of this to the teacher view again. All right. The other types, drop down. I'll show you real quick. I'm not going to make these, but blank drop down. How this would work is if I had all right, good enough. So for each response, you give them a drop down. So I go here, I give them several options. I put some words in here. So and here I have some more options. And then for 3, I have some as well. Whatever. Okay, I say random characters. So here then I would show them or here's I'm picking the correct answers. And so when they preview that, they see this. And they pick the words or whatever phrases or whatever you put in there to respond. All right, that's that one. And then drag and drop is the same basically, except they have one question bank. So options, I can give a whole bunch of words here, and they would just so A S D F G H J, and I would show what's the correct. All right, that's how it's correct. They do preview question. This is what they see. All right, they would just drag the responses in to the box. All right, so one set of questions, you can have as many as you want. They drag in the ones that fit that question. Short answer essay is obvious what it does. The only thing I want to point out here is you can give them different options of how they can format their text. So do you want them to be able to do bulleted lists and numbered lists? Do you want them to be able to do subscript and superscript here, or crazy character or special characters, math functions, math characters, I mean. So up to you what you want to do there. Do you want to have a word limit? Do you want to show them what the word limit is always, or just when they reach a certain limit? Do you want to show them the word count? So all that's that you can pick there. Placeholder. I'm missing something here. But placeholder would be, instead of write your question, you could put something else there. But as soon as they click on it, it would go away. That's what that placeholder does. You should be able to add a rubric here. Why is that not showing? Let me just save that. Oh, maybe put something here first, maybe. No. Save that. There should be the option to add a rubric here. I'm not sure why it's not there. But anyway, that should be there. All right, let me jump through some more here. So here's one, audio. You're basically just going to give them an audio box to respond in. So I'll say, read, maybe it's a foreign language class. So read this passage. And you give them some, a passage in Spanish, let's say, that they have to read. All right, so when they go to that question, they just have a recording button here. So they read the passage and record it while they're reading it, and you can then hear their speech of the language, the pronunciation of the language. Okay, and you can see how this could be used in lower levels as well to give audio responses. You have the same thing for video. Okay, and you can provide your own audio video in here as well first to give them an audio video prompt, and then they would record their video here as well. And you've seen author notes on all these questions. These are just notes for yourself to remind yourself of what you want to know for these questions. File upload probably is not going to work too well for us because our students are on Chromebooks. These when I preview it, it goes to your computer to upload the file. So you can't really get stuff in from Google Drive here. So probably not too functional for us. Maybe in a computer lab or something where kids have Windows computers, they could upload files more easily, but probably not the most useful thing for us. So let's get into the graphical ones now. Label an image. So this is a cool one. So put an image. And I have a water cycle here. All right. What's down here? I haven't even looked at this. Okay. All right. I'll just say here, the title of this is water cycle. All right, response box. I'm gonna add a response box here and put it right here. I'll put another response box. It blinks every time you add one. I'll put one here, response box again. Put one here. I put a couple of those down below as well if I were continuing. But then your options, I'll put in precipitation, station, um, evaporation, and that's good enough for now. And the correct answer setup would be precipitation, condensation, evaporation. These boxes aren't big enough. So down below you have additional setup options. So you click on that. You can now change this width to, let's go 150. And that fits better. All right. If I wanted to have maybe you have something that you want this to point to a certain thing, I could add a pointer. So I'll say top, and you'll see how that looks with a little, pointer here that I could, that indicates a, specific spot on the image. All right, I'll leave that off for now. All right, and so for the student, let me save that. It works just like it did for the preview, for the setting up the correct responses. They just see this and drag their responses into the correct spot. All right. All right. Highlight hotspot allows you to pick parts of an image. There's water. I'll just be brief on that. Image, I'll put that same image there. Okay, and then for this one, I would create hotspots here. So I would say, I will draw which are water, I guess, and which is water. Maybe I'll draw a little lake there. I'll draw a box around the cloud, being quick here. And I'll draw a box around the volcano. Oops. All right, so these are my different hotspots. And correct answer is multiple. It's the lake and the cloud. All right, and so let me save that. And we'll preview it. And this is what they see. They see these shaded spots that they can select. Now this this one's kind of hard to see, so just be aware of the coloring as you do these. They might not even notice this is even a selectable region. So, but anyway, they would pick those two and get credit. You can do partial credit as well on those. So, all right, there's highlight hotspot. Highlight image is cool. Let me show you this one. Now you can think of a lot of ways this can be used. You could just give them a blank slate to draw on. So I'll say, draw a trapezoid, or draw 2 examples. Trapezoid. All right, and for my image, could leave it blank entirely, and it gives them a small window to draw in. But I'll just have a background here, a big rectangle. All right. And okay. And that's it. It doesn't even show it here, but if I preview that, I now have a space they can draw. So I'll do this here. Whoops. There's a trapezoid, and then let's do another one. All right, great. So that's how that would work. Let me show you the cool thing about this. Let me edit this, don't X out. Let me save this. I'll show it from the student point of view. So I'm going to go to my student here and start a new attempt. I'll just do that one question again. All right, here we go. So draw two examples of a trapezoid. So let me do a wrong answer here. And I'll do a correct one. All right, and that's good. Let me review that and finish. Yeah, I'll submit that. And let's look at what the teacher sees, though. This is what's kind of cool. So I'm in the teacher view now, and I will go to grading. Let me get back out of this. So student, let me refresh. There we go. So student who just submitted needs grading. Let me look at this one. And I'll go down to that last question there. And it actually shows you what they did. Replay. It shows you how they drew it. So you can kind of look into their thinking as they, maybe depending on what the question is, they can undo their response and erase pieces of it and do it again. So if maybe you put an image here. Let's do this. Let's do one more of these. Show you another example. So if I do that same thing, highlight image. This time I'll graph, y equals, let me do this graph, put the math thing here. So y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. All right, and say okay. Now I have that equation there, upload image. I'll add a piece of graph paper. All right, hit okay. And then preview that. The student would then start plotting points here. So they could put points, and I'll just throw some, pretend I know what I'm doing quickly here. And so they could plot the points, so they could actually draw it. Yeah, so that's how that works. And you can see them, what they're doing when the teacher watches it, they'll see them plotting point by point and drawing the graph as well. They have other questions. So I could have an image here that has different things I want them to circle or highlight. I could say circle the one thing in red and something else in yellow. So anyway, you could use this for a lot of different things here. But if you load up a blank window, it could be a free draw space for them, like I showed earlier. All right, last couple here. Highlight text. Here, I could say highlight or select the adjectives, right, and have a sentence. And you could copy and paste, big passages in here and have them select sentences instead of words. But I'll say, oops. All right. And then, so possible. So once you set the question up, then you have to go to possible responses. Are you looking at paragraphs, sentences, or words? I'm doing words. And I'd say, and apply that. So it selects everything in that whole response. I'll turn that off, turn those off, and these are the possible response. I'm not going to use the word the does there. I'll just use the other words there. That these are their possible things that they can select. And correct is going to be quick, brown, lazy. All right. So you possible responses show what can they select, what are you allowing them to select, and then here you're saying what are the correct selections. So if I could have sentences in there, and they have to highlight all the sentences that have grammatical errors, let's say, or maybe you have several passages and they just select the correct passage, based on, something they read or whatever. So, all right, that's how that works. Partial match, exact match. Partial, just how many did they get right? There's no deduction unless you put a penalty for incorrect. And so that's how that works. Let's preview it. And I can't click I didn't select that as an option, but as I scroll across, they see what I can select. So student would select their responses that way. Math short answer. I'm not going to get into that one because it gets a little complex, but it allows you to create mathematical questions where the students have a mathematical, that same math editor I showed you earlier, they can use that to build their responses. And something you have to play around with because it is a little bit tricky to use at times, how to go from one line to the next. But if you're a math person, you want to try that, play around with it. It's obviously easier to write math than it is to do it on the computer, but this actually works pretty well. You saw when I did that y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1 equation earlier. It was pretty easy to set that up. So once they get used to it, they can use this math editor pretty easily. But it just makes a question where the students can respond with the math editor. The number line. And then you could give, here you're going to set a maximum value. Here's an example. One here. I'll say it's going to go to 5. You give different things you want to place on that number line. And then it could be images. It could be, so I can load images here. So I have a picture of 3 items. They put it on the 3. It could be fractions, right? I could use the math editor here to put a fraction in. So, I'll pick this here and say 1/3. Okay, load up images. But anyway, you can also then, what's the threshold? How close do they have to be to get a correct response? Like say 0.25, they have to be within a quarter of that, the 1, if it belongs on 1, all right? Correct, this should be about here. So within whoops, I have it snapping right now. So additional setup options, do not snap. And now they can put it in the right spot. So a quarter of unit away from that would be anywhere in this range from about here up to about here. So pretty wide range there, maybe too much. You can adjust that. If I said, so the tick distance is 1, I can make this 0.5. All right. If I could say, how do I want fractions to show? So if this is going, if I want these to be fractions rather than, maybe make this instead, I'll say 1/2. Now it's showing fractions here instead of the decimals. And do I want it to be mixed fractions? So now it's showing this way. So you can mess around with these to see how all this works. If I'm saying tick distance is 2, and let me make this regular. And my minimum value is -1. So I want the line to start at -1 or start at 0. I mean, include 0 in it. So now it's including 0 to 4 going by 2s as opposed to starting at the line minimum going by 2s. So that's all this works. You can play around with that to try specific labels and other things there to see how all that works. But that's the gist of number lines. If I then preview that, I see the number line. You just drag the items up into the. Oops, this is not a good example here, but drag your examples up into the number line. And then the last one is chart. This one you have to play around with a bit. It works really well. You can have students build their own chart, or you can build it for them and where they interact with it. Let's say, how far will a ball fall due to gravity time? All right, so the title would be whatever you want it to be. Max X value, I'll do 144, or let's do 160. X title is feet, and Y-X will be time, and 0.1, I'll say 1 second, 2 seconds, and 3 seconds. I'm going to start them at 0, and you'll see how this is going to work in a second. We're going to start at 0. Interactive, that's good. And so additional setup options. I'm going to snap every 16 since that's what's going to work out for gravity. And they're going to drag this by 16s. So these are the correct answers here if I do this. All right, so if you're a science person, this will make sense to you why I picked those units. But that's correct there. And let me save that. Preview question. And here's what the student would see. And they would drag their responses up to the right spots. All right. Now you can have different graph types. It can be a line graph. You can have them add their own points. So I go back to edit question. I can give them the option to add new points, edit their labels, delete points. So students can do all that. So if I wanted them to add a 4, I could change this to line graph or histograms or other types of graphs as well. But let me just save that and then preview it. And again, you can preview without saving, but you run the risk of hitting this by accident and losing what you did. So so now the student can add data, and we're going to label that 4 seconds, and then they can drag this. They can make their own. That's going to go off the chart there, but they can add their own points there. So you can give them nothing, and say add your data to plot this equation or whatever. So they can add their own data to this. Might not be the best use of what I just said there, but they can add their own data from nothing, make all their labels, and add all their points in. All right, so there's all the question types. I know I went through, probably got a little long on that. Let me go cover a couple other things real quick. This is the result of my power going out yesterday. I didn't have a chance to rehearse this and get the timing right, so we're going to run a little bit long here, but I'll be done in just another 5 minutes or so. So students, what happens if they are taking an assessment and they get kicked out? Maybe the power goes out, maybe they got to the class late and they didn't have time to finish. They'll just see a resume option. So let me go to the student here, start attempt. So here's my assessment. I'm going to start it. 13, go to the next one. I'll pick a couple here. I'm not sure about this. Let me flag this one so I can go back to that later. Next one here, I need the ruler. I'm going to come here and measure that. I got my answer. All right. Yep, I ran out of time. I got to go. I just close out. May I X out of the window? Whatever. I went out of the question. So what happens now for that student? Well, from the teacher point of view, if I go to grading by student, by student, I see that student's in progress. Okay, this is the 4th attempt in progress. I can delete that attempt altogether. I can submit it on their behalf. I'll show you this in a second. Start attempt. But what the student sees is, if I go back to that, they see start attempt, but they also see for that one a resume button. So they can hit resume and continue on where they left off. I think it goes right back to the same question. Yeah, it shows exactly where they were. All right. So that's how that works if someone gets kicked out. When you have the grading enabled, where they can see the responses, it just takes a couple seconds from when they submit till when they see it. It used to take several minutes. They fixed that just in the last few months, where I don't know exactly when, but in the last few months it shows almost instantly now. So they might have to refresh once or twice after a few seconds, but once they submit, their answers will be there, or their grades in there. If you say show results as well, responses as well, they'll see everything within a couple seconds. However, you need to make them aware that if there are items that you have to grade manually, and let me show you that. So here's let's go. So here's one. It's a they're going to write a response here, right? Written response, and they're seeing the possible points here. This is out of 20. So this is, even though I have my total points add up to more than 20 on each individual question, but it's going to be scaled to make it worth 20 points for the whole assessment. So it scales the possible points for that particular question. So let me just submit this. I'll go to the review area here, and next review, and then finish. You got to go to the last question in order to get that actual submit option. I'll just say yes. So from the teacher point of view, when I go refresh, so when I go to that student and I look down, I'll see that this one right here has a dash. Okay, so I need to grade this myself. So that you need to make your students aware that they're not going to see their actual grade, until you do your manual part of the grading. So like I said, they'll see a lower grade than they're really going to have when they first see their grade. So make them aware of that, so they know that they didn't just bomb a test when you have to actually add more points to them. So I'm going to give 1 point here. I can override any of these. Maybe I want to give the student credit for this one. All right. Maybe the student gave a great response. I want to give them bonus points. You can do that if you want. Give them more points than it's worth. So yeah, so that's how the grading would work here. So, all right. Now you have grade by student. You also have grade by question. So when you have a whole class taking the test, you can say by question. If I go to question here, I can show it in order. So show me question 1. It'll show me all the students in order here, where I can just look through and grade them, as I go through each person here. So you'll see one student after the next down the line here. All right, or I can go to the next question here. Again, see all the students and all their attempts going down the page. So this is the easiest way to grade it by question when you have a class full of students. Let me go back here. Live progress. I contacted Schoology yesterday, and this is something that's not on by default, but they're going to turn it on for us. So you'll see as they're taking the test, where is the student currently? What question are they on? What percent? I guess it's a percent based. How far along are they on the total test? How much time have they spent? How many items have they flagged? So you'll see their progress on the test once this is turned on and made live for us. Reporting just shows the scores each student got. So it's not all that useful, but it's there. One other thing, let's say you want to do an assessment. Maybe you're walking around the classroom and you're assessing kids one by one, or you want to take an assessment on behalf of a student. So you can, under grading by student, maybe student test 1 is blind, I don't know, or some reason can't take the test, broke his arm and can't use a mouse. You can start an attempt for the student. You're submitting on behalf of the student. It shows it on one big long page, probably a little faster for you than going page by page through it. And you can respond for the student. Okay. Based on their I guess verbal responses or however that needs to be done. So you can also, maybe a student started an exam, but it was a week ago. They were sick for a week and they want to start fresh. You can whoops, what did I just do there? Let's just say this one was in progress and you want to delete it and get rid of it. You can get rid of any attempt, any partial attempt, any complete attempt, and have the student start over then. So you can also print. I think it's up here, print assessment. So if you need a printed copy of an assessment, that option is there. And just want to point out a couple things in development. Here's one thing to be aware of. If in my questions, I chose the wrong response by accident, right? And now the whole test is graded based on the wrong response here. If I fix that, it does not regrade right now. That's currently in development by Schoology. That's one of the things they know they need to fix, but there'll be an option to regrade based on the corrected responses. So if that happens, you'll have to go manually through and correct the grades for all the students for that question that you fixed. So there you'd want to say view by question and fix them, but that will be coming soon, hopefully by the start of the school year. But it's been in development for a few months now, so I don't know it'll be ready in time for the start of the school year. But that's in their roadmap to get done soon. Also, item banks are not available. They're working on that. The first step is to have where you can save your questions to an item bank and then manually pull them into a test. The second phase will be you can pull a random set. So give me 10 of these 20 questions on a test, and it'll do that in a random order. And then the third step will be allow you to move your questions between question banks. So those are all things in development, but the initial one should be up, should be sooner, where you can save your questions to a question bank and pull them in manually back into a test. So sorry, I went a little bit over there. I hope I didn't lose too many of you there, but I know I went kind of quick.